All right, what's up, future CPAs? Welcome. If you're deep into your regulatory framework for business transactions review, you already know that installment sales laws are a pretty big deal. So think of this as your ultimate study guide, built to make sure these concepts actually stick in your brain for the board exams.
Okay, let's make this real. We've all been there, right? You're financing that new phone, a car, maybe even saving up for a condo. But then life happens and you miss a payment, or maybe two. What happens next? Well, the law actually has your back, but how it protects you is totally different depending on what you bought.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics of installment buying. Then we'll break down the two major laws you have to know, the Recto Law for stuff you can move, and the Maceda Law for real estate. Then we'll put them head to head and finish with a super fast review to lock it all in. Let's do this.
So when a buyer can't make their payments, the law doesn't just leave them hanging, but it creates this fork in the road. And the path you have to analyze for the exam depends on one simple question. Is the item a personal property or is it a real property?
This right here is step one for any exam problem on this topic. You have to figure this out first. If it's something you can literally pick up and move, a car, a laptop, a fridge, we're in the world of personal property. But if it's stuck to the ground, like a house or a condo, it's real property. Nail this distinction, and I promise you are already halfway there. So let's take that first path. We're talking about the Recto Law. Now here's your first study hack. You're going to want to remember this. Think recto for rolling things. Like cars. This law is the boss for installment sales of anything movable. Now, the scope here is super specific. It has to be a sale of personal property, and it has to be paid in installments. A sale on straight credit? Nope, not covered. And it also smartly covers those rent-to-own deals, so sellers can't just call it a lease to get around the rules. Pretty clever, right? Okay, this is the absolute core of the Recto Law. If a buyer defaults, the seller gets three options. But, and this is crucial, they have to pick one. Just one. They can sue for the whole balance, they can cancel the whole thing, or they can foreclose. They cannot do a little of this and a little of that. It's one choice, and that's it. If you're going to write down one thing in huge, bold letters, it's this. The remedies are alternative. That means they can't be stacked. If a seller tries to sneak a clause into a contract that says they can foreclose and sue for the rest of the money, that clause is worthless. It's totally void. The law protects the buyer from getting hit twice. Now, let's zoom in on option number 3, foreclosure, because this is a huge one for the exams. If the seller chooses to foreclose on the item, that's it. It's over. End of story. Even if the car sells at auction for way less than what the buyer still owes, the seller can't come after the buyer for that difference, that deficiency. Remember that. It is a classic trick question. Okay, let's shift gears and take that other path, real estate. And for this, here's your next mnemonic. Think Maceda for my home. This law is all about protecting people who are buying residential property on an installment basis. You'll notice the whole vibe changes here. The Recto Law was all about the seller's choices, right? Well, the Maceda Law flips the script. It's all about the buyer's rights. The whole point is to make sure people buying their homes don't lose every single peso they've paid just because they hit a rough patch and missed a payment. And this lays it out perfectly. It's like there are two levels of protection. The law basically looks at how much you've already paid into your property. If you've paid for less than 2 years, you get a solid 60-day grace period. But once you cross that 2-year mark, bam, your rights get a major upgrade. Let's lock this number in your brain, 60 days. This is a right given to you by law. The seller can't charge you interest during these 60 days, and they can't just cancel on you the moment you're late. And here is another magic number for the exam. If you've paid for at least 2 years and the seller decides to cancel the sale, they have to give you some of your money back. This is called the cash surrender value, and it starts at a minimum of 50% of everything you've paid. After 5 years, it even goes up, all the way to a max of 90%. So what's the deal with condos? Another law, PD 957, technically covers them, but for your exam, all you need to remember is this. When it comes to a buyer defaulting on their condo payments, the rules from the Maceda Law kick in. It's that simple. Condo installment sales fall under Maceda's protection. All right, this is what I call the ultimate study guide moment. Putting these two laws right next to each other is seriously the best way to make the differences stick. So let's put them in the ring, head to head. See how this just simplifies everything? Recto for personal property focused on the seller's 3 choices. Maceda for your home, focused on the buyer's rights like grace periods and getting cash back. And look at that last row, the deficiency. It's a huge deal under the Recto Law, but it's not even a thing for Maceda because the focus there is all about what the buyer gets back.
Okay, it's time for the rapid fire round. This is it. If you're cramming, last minute, or you just need that final mental checklist, these are the absolute must-knows to crush it on the LEPA.
Let's go. Recto Law is for movable property. The seller has 3 alternative remedies. They have to pick one. And the golden rule: if they foreclose, they get no deficiency claim. Don't forget, R for rolling things. Got it?
And Maceda, think real estate. It's all about the buyer's rights. The whole game changes after 2 years of payments. That's when you unlock longer grace periods and that cash surrender value. And remember, any tricky contract clause that tries to automatically cancel the sale is totally void. Maceda is for my home.
So let's wrap it up with this. This is where it all comes together. Your advice for a client with a late car payment would be completely different from your advice for a late condo payment, wouldn't it? One is under the seller-focused Recto Law, the other is under the buyer-protective Maceda Law. Understanding that difference, that fork in the road, is how you master this topic. Keep that in mind and you are going to do great.